now I just want to introduce to you my Senator, Susan Wagle.
Thank you. And I am so blessed to have as my representative fellow Susan Humphreys. God bless you, Susan. She's carrying on the war, as are the other colleagues who are here today with us in the middle of an election season. This is a very special event for me today because I was able to bring my supporter, my husband, Tom Wagle. Tom, over here, stand up. Tom's always very busy, and I thought I'd start out with a Kansas story about our lives together, not necessarily be political at first. Tom and I married when we were both in our later 20s. We both had early marriages that didn't work. We both made mistakes, and it was a second marriage for both of us. And that's difficult to do. It's difficult to have an early trauma in your life. And I remember, I was going to tell you the story about the first house we bought. Tom and I were both school teachers in the Wichita Public Schools. And when I met Tom, he said, you know, I'm a school teacher because I love kids. He was the oldest of 12 children in a very large Catholic family. And he goes, I love kids, I love teaching, but I have to earn an income. I need to make some investments. And Susan, I like buying fixer-uppers. And okay, that's cool. And he'd fix them up by himself, and he'd buy the worst property on the block, and he'd clean it up. And I remember buying our first house. It was called the Isley House. It was across from Fairmount Park near WSU, and it was an absolute disaster wreck. Interest rates were 18%, and there was a little old sweet lady who had some rentals, and she couldn't manage them. They had gotten out of control, and she couldn't sell them because interest rates were 18%. So she sold this property to my husband, and she carried back the note. And the Isley House, Mr. Isley was a Kansas historian. We have a school in Wichita named after Mr. Isley. And he lived in that house, and we moved into it, brought my parents over. It was just by WSU, and okay, the truth of the matter was, it was a drug house. So the porch was falling down. And you know, the first thing we had to clean up was the bathroom. We had to make it functional. So you can't fix the porch. But when my parents came over to the house, and you know, he was questioning second marriage, what the heck are you doing? Doubting their daughter, and they walked into the living room, and there's bullet holes on both sides of the walls. And they wanted me to move the hell out of there fast. Oh, honey, Mom, this is our investment. We're going to clean it up and make some money. No, honey, you need to move out. Well, the Isley House is on at least 2 properties, okay, and the backyard was a forest that you can't get through. Maybe it was on 3 properties. It was a very, very nice house. The problem was it was a WSU drug house. So we couldn't, you know, we were doing this ourselves. We had to start with the bathroom. We had to go to the kitchen. The bullet holes were the last thing we did in the living room. But the backyard was a forest. And I told Mom, don't worry, we have a big dog. We're going to be okay here. It's going to be good. So we couldn't tackle the forest. I mean, you couldn't even hardly walk to the backyard. Except one summer, but the second summer we were owning that house, Tom came in, and he'd been through the backyard, and he goes, look what I found. I go, what is that? He goes, I think it's marijuana. I go, oh. But it was small. It was early summer. So, well, we didn't have time to clean that up. We were working on the bullet holes to get my mom okay. But we had, on the back of this house was a beautiful glass porch, an enclosed porch. And that summer, later on in the summer, our dog was going crazy and very upset about the backyard. I thought it was squirrels. And one day Tom came in and said, it's gone. I go, what are you talking about? that stuff I thought was marijuana, it's gone. And we went back there, and in the middle of the forest was, if you uncovered it and pulled back the dirt, there was an ice rink. Mr. Isley's son became a famous ice skater, and that was their first ice rink. And so the middle of the forest had sunlight, and somebody had harvested the crop before we could clean out the backyard. So Tom and I, we rented it at first, then we sold it, we made some money. We were able to move out by the Humphreys. And later on, 10 years later, we lived out in the suburbs, and we no longer taught school. And there was an open seat in the Kansas House. Mike Hayden was our governor. He was running for re-election. He was a Republican. He ran as a conservative. He told us all he was pro-life. And then he vetoed a bill that was parental notification. Whoops, wait a minute. That's a promise broken. But then towards the end of his term, he doubled and tripled our property taxes. He changed the way we tax properties in Kansas. And there was a property tax rebellion going on, and Nestor Weigand from Wichita was going to run against him. And so people came to me and said, Susan, you need to run for the House. And I kind of laughed at him. I've never thought about being in politics. I'm not going to do that. But Tom, my political, courageous, strong husband, would say, Susan, you need to think about that. I go, no, we have children, this isn't going to work. Well, I'd lay my head down in bed at night, and all I could hear were those babies crying down the street. Tiller had a third trimester abortion practice. And I thought, when I couldn't find anyone to run, on the last day of the filing deadline, I filed. So it wasn't something I ever thought about doing. I've always had the support of my husband, and he's very political, very courageous. He does real estate still, and but then he processes with me at the end of the day and helps me with decisions and helps me and encourages me in everything I've done. So he's been a tremendous blessing. I do have to say the Isley House is still there, and around the corner, Joel Walsh, if you remember him from the Eagles, he bought his grandma's house because he grew up in Wichita. Now, Joe Walsh is older than Tom and I, and he's had a much more colorful life, but that's quite a block up there by WSU, and I just thought I'd tell you about our history, our early history when Tom and I first got together. He's been a tremendous blessing, a wonderful husband, and a great partner in politics. So I was able to win that seat in the Kansas House, and there was a stronghold. There was a stronghold of moderates elected, even in the Republican Party. And I was very surprised to find that Dr. Tiller was the doctor of the day often in the Kansas House. Every day we bring up a different physician from a different community, and that doctor serves as a volunteer for House members and senators. It's hard if we get a cold to run away and go to the doctor, so we always have a doctor of the day. Dr. Tiller was in charge of money. He was in charge of leaders. That's why we had a state with absolutely no laws regulating abortion. So I was able to pass the first abortion law in a pro-choice House and a pro-choice Senate. It was called the Women's Right to Know. I couldn't pass a restriction, but I could, the legislators said, okay, let's educate women on childhood development in the womb. And so when sonograms were coming around, and we started to realize that that's a baby with a beating heart, with his or her own DNA, and it's a child in the womb. So we passed that bill. We've made a lot of progress in the life movement. I was able to run for leadership in the House, and every 2 years, I've worked hard during election season to make sure that we elect pro-life conservatives in the legislature. It was back in the 90s and in the early 2000s, the legislature was very controlled by moderate Republicans. And Carl, as you've stated, they've all endorsed Barbara Boyer for Kansas Senate. The leaders of the Kansas House and Senate are, every one of them, on that mailer that you and I got the other day. So it's been a long road trying to fix what's broken with Kansas, but I'm very thankful that we have conservative leaders there right now in the House and the Senate. I would like to say I've been 30 years in the legislature, 10 in the House, 20 in the Senate. I've always voted for term limits. Of course, that never passed. You have to play by the rules you're given. And so in Kansas, the leadership moves up with time, with relationships, and by working elections. So I have been able to be Senate President for the last 8 years. I've helped move the state to the right. I can tell you I've helped elect a lot of candidates who are wonderful people. And Sedgwick County really is the heart of the conservative movement in the state of Kansas. Right? We were the first to elect conservatives to the House and the Senate. We're not quite there yet, but we've made great strides. No one in leadership has ever served more than 2 terms in the Kansas House or Senate. I knew I was getting ready to retire. I knew I had to move on and give this position to other conservatives and let other people take over the problems. And last year, as this was all evolving, we also had an open U.S. Senate seat. I announced for that U.S. Senate seat after being encouraged by my husband, and all of my children said, "Mom, you've got to do that. You've got to do that for the grandkids." We have 7 kids. We have 16 grandkids. So we have a very full life. But our children said, "Mom, we support you. Let's try running for the U.S. Senate." We got into session last year. And actually in December, my daughter, who was battling cancer, she relapsed from multiple myeloma from a transplant. And we didn't expect that. And Tom and I had to become caregivers. And she lived in Lawrence. She's a physician. She had 4 little children, 10, 8, 6, and 4. And so even though I'd announced for Senate, I was now in session, and our daughter needed help. So Tom moved up to Topeka, and we drove her to doctor appointments. We were with her at night. When someone's in the end stage, they need help getting in bed at night. And of course, we thought she was going to live, but I lost her in March. COVID broke out. COVID just had started to come into Kansas, and they had just started to shut things down. And so therefore, we had to have a very tiny, family-only funeral for her. And I had to, after seeing what Governor Kelly was doing as Senate President, I had to focus on reining in Governor Kelly. It was her goal to raise fear in all of us, to shut down our economy, and use COVID as the excuse. And so as Senate President, this has been the most, I've served in Kansas, as I've said, 30 years. This has been the most difficult year I've ever served because of an unexpected pandemic. And how in the world can the government across the nation come in and say, okay, this is unprecedented, we have to close your business. You may have worked all your life to buy that property, to invest in that business, to build a clientele, to earn a living, and we told you to shut down. And I understand when the pandemic first came out why we needed to reevaluate and shut down very temporarily until we figured out the virus. But we've figured we don't have a cure yet. We will have a vaccine very soon. But we've learned how to treat the virus. And we don't have the death rate that they predicted. And we've learned so much since it first broke out. We've learned that children just really, they don't catch it. Their immune systems fight off that virus. And here we are still in a situation where there are schools that are closed. And my candidates, Senate and House candidates, are knocking on doors, and they're finding children at home unattended. They aren't learning, they're unattended, and the governor would still, if she could, we've taken the right away from her, if she could, she would shut down business. And when this all started and chaos broke out, my husband always said, "Oh, Susan, I think this will stop the day after the election." And I pray he's right. We've learned that social distancing works. We've learned that we should wear masks, that we shouldn't be in big crowds, that we shouldn't be very closely knit together, that it can spread, and that those who get it are most likely 70 or older, and that those who die from it, we've also learned they have other complications. they have other health concerns. And so with that knowledge, every business owner wants to protect their clientele, wants to protect their workers, and they are willing to take precautions and open with safety measures in place. I begged the governor, don't shut down the economy, just say, allow the business owners to open up at 50% of the capacity with masks. Allow them to continue their work. Allow them to bring in a little bit of money. Our property taxes haven't stopped. We still pay property taxes. We still pay income. We still have all of the bills that are flowing in from big government. And we've actually cut off that business owner's ability to pay their bills. And we could open safely. We are willing to take precautions. We are willing to protect our neighbor from that virus. And our health facilities, we've learned it isn't ventilators that helps people get better. It's steroids that protects that virus from coming into the lungs. So we've learned better ways to treat. Our death rate is way down. Our schools should be open. Oh my goodness, our schools should be open. Our kids need to learn. We need socialization. We need communication. We are a communicative people. We thrive on knowing our neighbors and sharing with our neighbors. Even when we differ, we thrive by being with other people. And this COVID crisis has sank our economy. We've borrowed trillions to try and get through. The Kansas budget has taken a big dip, and still this governor would prefer to keep things shut down. One of the highlights, the governor wanted to use her ability to pass emergency declarations to run the whole show. And we kept saying, Governor, this COVID crisis isn't a one-size-fits-all. This is the state of Kansas. And yes, we have very urban areas where people are more closely packed, but we have counties that have no incidents, absolutely no incidents of COVID, and you want to shut them down too? We need to keep Western Kansas open, where the population is not dense. And she just went working with us, and we kept saying, one size doesn't fit all. And then she vetoed our bill that passed it down to local government, because we felt like those people who are closest to those who elect them will make better decisions. And we wanted to take that power away from the governor for making a decision that dictated the way we were going to handle the virus statewide. So we passed a bill, and we said we're going to give it down to the county commissions. And she vetoed it. She called us back for a special session. And we went and we said, look, things are out of control. We need to get our feet back. We need to get business back. We were very worried. The Supreme Court had just struck our caps on damages and lawsuits. We used to have for an emotion and pain settlement. You know, if you have a car wreck, you get the damages from the car wreck, you get your health care covered, you get your time away from work. If you have a long-term injury, that is covered. But then there's the pain and suffering. We had caps on that in state law so that the trial attorneys wouldn't run away with multi-million-dollar lawsuits and making a lot of money. The Supreme Court struck that, and the minute COVID hit, all our businesses were very concerned about lawsuits going forward. Let's say if I open my doors, I'm a restaurant, I don't know it, I've taken precautions, the tables are more than 6 feet apart, my employees have masks, but what if somebody says they got COVID and I'm sued? We were able to put in this bill affirmative defense for businesses when it comes to COVID in order to cap damages for lawsuits that evolve from the COVID crisis. So we negotiated a bill with her, she signed the bill, and in the last 2 weeks she's done nothing but complained and says she needs to go back and have full authority over the state. So Governor Laura Kelly is going to be the gift that keeps on giving. She's a liberal. She's working very hard to elect Barbara Boyer. I will retire in January, but right now I'm in charge of the Kansas Senate elections. My goal is to get back a 2/3 majority for Republicans. We are about to have redistricting in the state of Kansas, And if Laura Kelly's governor, and her goal is going to be to draw Democrat seats. My Senate seat that Renee Erickson is running in right now, it is pro-Biden. It's moved to the left. And during redistricting, I need to give her some more Republican neighborhoods in order to make sure she stays elected. So redistricting is right around the corner. And if Governor Kelly can veto a Republican bill that gives us 4 Republican congressmen, that takes out Sharice Davis up in the 3rd, we can do that. I guarantee you, we can draw 4 Republican congressional maps. But we can't do it unless we have a 2/3 majority in the Senate and House. So the maps are coming up. If we don't win Republican elections, she will veto our map, and she's going to try and draw a congressional map that gives us 2 Democrat congressmen. Right now, Sharice Davis has won up in the 3rd, up in the northeast Kansas. She's very likely the winner. Barbara Boyer, the U.S. Senator, she's from Johnson County. We are losing northeast Kansas. It's pro-Biden, it's pro-Boyer, it's pro-Sharice Davis. The suburbs, the women tend to vote for women. So we have some very big challenges. For me, my toughest races are up in Johnson and Wyandotte County. And they're very narrow. They're winning or losing by 1 or 2 points. And October is going to be a very, very, very difficult election month. And let me assure you, they're moving into the suburbs. So Johnson County and Wyandotte County, they're in trouble. But here in my Senate races in Wichita, I have 2 Republicans they're targeting, Mike Peterson and Renee Erickson. They're both in swing districts. And you need to know that Democrats are raising 2, 3, 4 times as much money as Republicans. They're getting the $5 and $10 and the $50 checks. Jim Ward is running against Mike Peterson. He has 2 or 3 times as much money. Melissa Gregory is running against Renee Erickson with 2 or 3 times as much money in swing districts. So I wanted to ask every one of you today to do what the Democrats do. Chase is here. Chase is my chief of staff. He has addresses where we can send Renee and Mike checks. I don't care how big they are. We need walkers. We need money. I'm sure Susan can tell you about the House seats. I'm very worried about this election. We're at a crossroads. It's between law and order and riots. It's between capitalism versus socialism. And the choice between limited government that allows you to run your own business and determine your own direction, and a massive government that dictates everything. And we're in trouble in Kansas. We are in trouble in Kansas. We're going to win the first. We're going to win the rural areas. They're God-loving, God-fearing Republicans. But we're losing our cities. And Chase and I had quite a day on Monday. Oh my goodness, we had a bad day on Monday because you've seen the protests on television? We've had protests in the Capitol. They've come, Laura Kelly brings the protesters to the Kansas Capitol to protest the fact that we haven't passed Obamacare in Kansas. A broken system that raises your costs. It's regulated. You can't see a doctor. It doesn't work. Your deductibles have gone from $2,000 to $8,000 a month. Healthcare prices have absolutely soared through the roof. since Obamacare's passed. So we haven't passed the expansion of Obamacare in Kansas. So they come, 2 years ago, they came to the Senate. They took over the gallery. They wouldn't let us debate and proceed. We couldn't hear each other. They stopped debate in the Kansas Senate. And we asked to have the protesters arrested. We are allowed to have a lawful assembly of elected officials. We're allowed to debate and do our work. They were in the chamber gallery disrupting us. And we were so upset because it took hours to get people in, to pull them out of the Capitol, and then no charges were pressed. And we go, wow, they disrupted a legal public meeting and there's no charges pressed. So, okay, so then we go to last year and it happens again. Twice as many people. And what did they do this time? They blocked the Senate chamber, so my senators can't even get into the chamber. Physically blocked us. And so, again, it takes hours to get the highway patrol there, to walk people out peacefully and get them out of the Capitol. Now, Laura Kelly liked those protests. She stopped our business. And we took testimony. We put together videos of them blockading senators from doing their work. That is against the law. You cannot stop a public elected officials from doing their work. So we actually had videos that were on television that we took down. We took all the testimony from all the senators that couldn't get in the chamber to do our work. And we took pictures of blockades. And we just found out on Monday there were going to be no charges pressed. And if there's no consequences for blocking a legal assembly, if there's no consequences for starting a riot, for starting a fire, for taking someone else's property, for protesting in the street, then that will continue. We're in an age of lawlessness. And I just can't tell you how important this election is. It's important to your children. So Chase has addresses of 2 candidates that need help. I know they have websites. And we need money to the Senate candidates. I know Susan has a list of people that need help in the House. I'm very worried about my seat. I'm very worried about Renee being able to hold my seat. Joe Biden is winning my Senate seat. So Renee has to have money to overcome that. I just don't think anyone's voting for Joe Biden. I think they're voting against Trump because of all the false narratives they've heard. And because he's outspoken. And because he's a fixer. Because he's getting things done. And the left, they've taken over the streets and they've taken over the media. So, boy, 1 month. And I just can't impress upon you how important this election season is and how much we need you, how much we need your help. So I hope that you talk to Susan or you talk to Chase. We'll get you addresses. We'll get you candidates in need here in our community. We can help them walk. We can help them knock on doors. What they really need is money because you have to buy digital ads. It's a new era of campaigning. You used to do it by mail and knocking, and yes, knocking on doors is everything. But social media, people spend a lot of time on social media, and you can buy ads and have them pop up. You can direct those ads to unaffiliated voters, and that takes a lot of money. But we can do it. We can win. We just need your help. We just need your help. So I'll tell you one more story since my husband's here. I had to drop out of the U.S. Senate race. It was very important. It was not right for me at the time. And so now I'm very, very busy. Long days. Phone rings off the wall. We're very busy. I know Chase doesn't sleep. it's very hard on all of us. But I know what's coming, and session's coming, and typically in session, I'm a very busy person. It's like every 10 minutes, somebody else is coming in, or I'm running to a meeting, or running to a committee, or going to talk to a senator. I'm always busy in January, very, very busy. And I said, Tom, what am I going to do in January? I'm going to be home. And I said, honey, I think I need a puppy. And Tom laughed. And he said, no. Oh, honey, I need something to do. Oh, Susan, they're going to wreck the carpets. You know, that's another baby. You can't do this. And I was really working on it for a while, and he just kept saying, no, we've done that, Susan. We've done that. We don't need a puppy. And anyway, so one night, you got to try a different angle. I'm pretty used to negotiating with senators. I was looking for an angle to make him change his mind. And finally I said, Tom, do you not understand? I can't run up and down the stairs. I'm not running over to the house. I'm not going to the governor's office. If you don't buy me a puppy, I'm going to put on a lot of weight. And he said no. Okay. But then he slept on it one night. And he got up and he goes, I've been thinking about this, honey. Maybe we should get a puppy. So he's now approved my puppy. I'm going to get a puppy in October. Late October. Most of the elections for us will be done. The mail will be out. We will add the volunteers. We will have raised the money. So I get a puppy, and I'm going to sit back and watch how things go in the legislature. I'm going to pray that my colleagues, my conservatives, get elected. I'm going to pray we win all those marginal districts in Johnson County. We do need a lot of prayer. It's a spiritual battle. There's no question. It's a battle for our country, and it's a spiritual battle. So we need all of you. Please talk to Chase. Please talk to Susan. We'll let you know where we can use your help, because Wichita's up for grabs too in the inner city. So God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, John, Carl. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, I guess we're going to answer questions.
Yeah, time for a few questions.
Steve, sure, hi, okay.
My representative in Newton is, I'm sure you've heard of this guy named Tim Hodge. He is the most liberal Democrat in the House. So I want to make note of that. We have a Republican running against him. His name is Avery Anderson. Avery Anderson is a young guy. He's only 23 years old, but he's willing to work hard to overcome Tim. So, again, if you have any extra money, we could sure use it in Harvey County to support Avery Anderson.
Amen. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Susan.
Yeah.
And thank you for bringing up Renee Erickson and Mike Peterson, both very fine individuals. I'm an officer with the Republican House Campaign Committee. I know there's the same thing on the Senate side. Do you have any feel for how much money is being raised on the Senate side and how much could possibly be funneled into them races among others at this point?
Well, the mail that's going on right now is from it's the Kansas Values Institute, right, Chase? Is that the name of it? That is Laura Kelly's PAC. We have no idea how much is in that PAC. We know that Barbara Boyer had $5 million in the bank when Marshall had $1 million in the bank. So we know Barbara Boyer, in order to increase her chances, she's going to be using some of those millions for get out the vote. Do I have any idea how much money they have? All I know, Leo, is it's far more than twice as much as Republicans have. It's just like, 2 months ago, Trump raised more money nationally than Biden, and now Biden is up. The Democrats are motivated. They're on a website called Act Blue, and they have a lot of small givers, and small dollars add up. So I would say the Democrats are running with at least 2 to 3 times what the Republicans are running with. We're running on values and ideas, and they're running with distortions and bigger government, and they're putting fear into people. I will take care of your health care. Well, We'll give you options in healthcare. We'll give you choice. We'll give you quality care. We'll give transparency in pricing. We'll help bring prices down. So it's at least 2 to 3 times the amount of money that the Republicans have. I'd say in the House, the Senate, U.S. Senate, and Congress. It's just terrible out there, except for the first, God's country. Okay, except for the first. Okay. Yeah.
I know this is over now, but it could happen again. I'm asking about Governor Kelly's actions in limiting the number of people who attend church to 10. My question is, what happened to the First Amendment to the Constitution that guarantees the right, freedom of religion and the right of peaceful assembly? And what happened to the so-called separation of church and state years out? If we really had that separation of church and state, how can the governor tell the church what to do?
Thank you for that reminder. She left open what was called essential businesses, the hardware stores and the liquor stores. She left them all open, okay? She chose who got to stay open and who had to close. And so she closed the churches and left open essential businesses. We disagreed with her. It went to federal court and we won. But it took a lot of money to go to federal court and sue her and stop her regulation to close churches. That shows you who she is and what her values are, and we should never forget that. We should never forget that. She did order the liquor stores open and the churches closed. So I think that the Democrats obviously don't care about law and order and our constitutional rights or our gun rights. I mean, the Democrats are talking about regulating guns. So we are at a crossroads, folks. We are at a crossroads. Yes?
Senator, you guys have the majority. Why wasn't it possible for you guys to press charges on those rioters? I mean, you're the majority Republican Party.
We gave it to the prosecutor and the Highway Patrol. The Highway Patrol is governed by Laura Kelly. We gave it to the Shawnee County prosecutor. The prosecutor, the charges are pressed at the and he has not prosecuted.
Thank you so much for being here, Senator.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay.
Thank you for all your mentorship and leadership. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. We know that greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. We know the things that we believe in as conservatives with our pocket and our principles. We know that everyone here is going to pledge and give money to these candidates that need this help to safeguard our rights and our freedoms here in Wichita and throughout Kansas. We know that everyone is going to get up and go and take 5 people, 10 people with them to go vote in person, early voting. My question to you, ma'am, is when we're looking at Governor Kelly for the next 2 years up there, what will be your advisement to state reps and senators on how to stymie all of her ridiculousness?
We absolutely will not be able to stymie her at all unless we get a 2/3 majority in the House and the Senate. Because the Constitution says she has the right to, we have the majority. We will maintain the majority of Republicans in the House and Senate. But in order to override a veto on the maps, or in order to rein her in on her emergency orders, you need a 2/3 majority. Or else we have no power. We have the majority, but it takes 2/3 to override a veto. So it's happening now. Right now we're deciding what's going to happen next year going forward. And this election is critical, and I agree with you. We need to bring this morning an article came out in Johnson County, get this, that says that the election commissioner in Johnson County says they're going to have a 90% turnout on the vote, and it'll mostly be mail-in ballots. So we've never had that kind of a turnout. I have watched what's called ballot harvesting over the years in Mike Peterson's district. We've always had to pull Mike Peterson out. He's got a very difficult district to win. And after those mail ballots go out, we've always found Democrat door knockers at the door harvesting ballots and volunteering to pick up the ballots. I'll take the ballot to you to the election commissioner's office. And you know darn well that they'll get to know that elderly person, or, they'll figure it out. They know whether that's a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot. I guarantee you, those harvesters don't send the Republican ballots to the Sedgwick County Election Commissioner. It's called ballot harvesting. And in a year, when we're going to have a lot of mail ballots, some unscrupulous things can happen. And the mail ballots is a result of the COVID. And there are people who fear going out to the polling booths. The Secretary of State's office is gearing up for it. But predicting a 90% turnout in Johnson County, Barbara Boyer headquarters, that's a problem. We have to verify those ballots. In Kansas, in the Kansas legislature, we've always worked very hard. We've bought new machinery. We passed a bill that said you have to have an ID to vote. We want to make sure you're a Kansas citizen. We want to know you're living here. You have to have a valid ID. And we always envisioned on election day going to the polls and voting. And for those people that had hardships, or maybe someone's in the hospital or an elderly care facility, we made it so you could request a mail-in ballot. And you can also do early voting downtown or in a special facility. We've allowed for those exemptions. Never did we dream of a mail ballot being pervasive. In the states that have allowed mail ballots, it took years to get the rolls cleaned up and to make it so you can't cheat. So I'm very worried also about a contested election for the president. I'm very worried that on election night we could have one turnout and Trump can win, and then that'll be contested. We remember that in the Bush years when Florida had a recount. So very difficult times we're living in.
Last question over here.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about Senate seat 2025 between Val Tracy and Mary Ware?
Vale's here. Where's Vale?
Right. Do you know how that seat's going?
I know Vale's working really hard. I know he has some help. Mary is an incumbent. So Mary has a ton of money. And Vale's the challenger. So you knock on doors. What you do is you talk to as many voters as you can. I don't have any polling from that district. I know it's leaned left. That district has leaned left just like my district is leaning left right now. Yes, yeah, money. Vale needs money. Vale needs money. Vale is here, and he'll give you his address. And you can write a check before you walk out the door.
Last question.
Yeah.
Mr. President, I grabbed the
Oh,
microphone,
okay,
so
okay.
I'm able to throw it out to you. Susan.
Okay.
What's next?
What?
What's next for you, or just besides spoiling grandchildren?
The dog.
I got a puppy.
No, besides the puppy, come on.
I am healing, and I'm a grandma right now, and we'll see. Well, right now, we had our 6-month anniversary just a few days ago from the loss of our daughter, and we're still just sometimes you don't understand. You don't understand why God allowed that. So for now, a puppy. How's that?
That's great. I may have a suggestion for you, but thank you.
Okay.
State Senate President Susan Wagle.